A strange signal. The night was quiet. Only the wind moved through the trees and the mountains. Daniel lived alone, far from the cities, far from people. He had once worked in space missions, but that was many years ago. Now he fixed machines and old radios for fun. He sat near his work table, fixing a broken scanner. The small screen suddenly lit up. A sound came from it, soft and strange. Daniel looked closer. A voice. A soft, broken voice repeated one word again and again. Daniel ... Daniel ... Daniel. His hands stopped moving. His eyes widened. He turned the volume up. The voice was not human. It was gentle, sad, and not from Earth. No. This can't be, Daniel whispered. His heart beat faster. He had heard this voice before. 12 years ago, on a planet far from Earth. It was her voice. 12 years ago, Daniel was part of a secret space mission. The ship had lost control and crashed on a strange planet. He was the only one who survived. There, he met Alara. She was not like other aliens. She looked almost human, with silver eyes and glowing skin. She had saved him, cared for him, even though he was a stranger. They could not speak the same language at first. But slowly they learned. Alara was kind, strong, and smart. She showed Daniel the secrets of her world. In time, they became close, very close. But one day, she disappeared. Soldiers from her world came. They took her, and Daniel was rescued by Earth's forces days later. He never saw her again. Until now. Back in his cabin, the signal grew stronger. Daniel looked at the scanner. A code followed the voice. It was an old star map signal. Coordinates. She's sending her location, he said. He quickly opened a dusty drawer. Inside was a small metal case. He opened it. Inside were memories, a photo of the crashed ship, Alara's small crystal pendant, and a map of the stars. His hands shook as he matched the coordinates. They pointed to a valley just 2 hours from his cabin. Was she here? Was Alara on Earth? He jumped into his old Jeep and drove fast through the mountain roads. Clouds gathered above. Thunder rolled in the distance. Rain started falling. He reached the valley. It was quiet, too quiet. Suddenly, a bright light appeared in the sky. He looked up. A small spacecraft fell from the clouds, smoking, spinning out of control. It crashed behind a hill with a loud boom. Daniel ran. When he reached the crash site, the ship was half buried in the ground. Smoke rose into the sky. He moved closer, carefully. The door opened with a hiss. A figure fell out. It was her. Alara. She looked the same, but different. Her silver eyes were tired, and her skin had lost some of its glow. She was hurt. Daniel ran to her. Alara, he shouted. Her eyes opened slowly. When she saw him, she smiled weakly. You came, she said in a soft voice. She fell unconscious in his arms. Daniel took her to his cabin. He cleaned her wounds and gave her water. She slept for hours. When she finally opened her eyes again, it was midnight. Rain still fell outside. Daniel sat beside her, waiting. Why? Are you here? He asked gently. She looked at him, pain in her eyes. I had to come back, she said slowly. I couldn't forget you. Daniel didn't speak. He didn't know what to say. His heart was full of questions, but before he could ask, Alara sat up. They are coming, she whispered. Who? Daniel asked. Alara looked out the window into the dark forest. Not all from my world are kind, she said. They followed me here. A loud sound echoed outside. A strange, high-pitched noise, like something scanning the forest. Daniel grabbed a flashlight and looked. Outside. Nothing. But he felt it. They were not alone anymore. He closed the door and looked at Alara. Start from the beginning, he said. She nodded slowly. And then She began to tell the story. Rain poured down harder as Daniel stood near the window, flashlight in hand. The trees outside swayed in the wind and thunder rolled across the sky. Inside the cabin, Elara sat quietly on the edge of the old couch, wrapped in a blanket. Her glowing silver eyes stared at the fire, but her thoughts were far away. She looked weaker than before, her skin pale, her voice softer. The crash had taken a toll on her. Still, she had come back for him. Daniel paced the floor, mind racing with questions. Who was chasing her? Why now, after all these years? And how had she even reached Earth again? He had so many things to ask, but the sound outside returned a Sejorinda. Strange high-pitched hum, distant yet clear. It wasn't thunder, it wasn't wind. It was something unnatural. I think they're looking for me, Elara said, breaking the silence. I escaped, but not alone. They sent hunters. They never let traitors live. Daniel turned to her, confused. Traitor? You? I helped you, she said, her voice calm but full of pain. That was enough. 12 years ago, saving a human had been an unforgivable act on her world. Her people had strict laws. Humans were not friends. They were outsiders, seen as weak and dangerous. When Elara helped Daniel survive, she had broken the oldest rule of her kind. She had been taken, locked away, forgotten. But even in the cold, silent prisons of her world, she had not forgotten him. Memories of Daniel's kindness and bravery had stayed with her. That memory became her reason to live and finally to escape. She looked up at him now. I came to warn you. They want something from Earth, something buried here, something ancient. Daniel sat down across from her, trying to understand. Why Earth? We don't have alien tech. We don't even know what's out there. Elara shook her head. You don't know, but they do. Long ago, before Earth had cities and machines, my people visited here. They left behind something powerful, something hidden. Now those who chased me, they want it. And they will destroy anything that stands in their way. Before Daniel could speak, the cabin lights flickered. A strange pulse ran through the walls like an invisible wave of static. Elara stood up fast, suddenly alert. They're close. She whispered. They use energy pulses to track life signs. We need to move. Daniel grabbed a small backpack, stuffed it with basic supplies, and helped Elara outside. The rain had turned into a misty fog, and visibility was low. They moved quietly through the trees, heading toward the nearby cave's old mines Daniel had explored years ago. He knew the tunnels could hide them, at least for a while. As they reached the entrance of the cave, a sharp beam of light cut through the forest behind them. A floating drone, sleek and black, hovered above the ground. It scanned the area, moving in slow, smooth circles. Then it stopped. It had seen them. Run! Daniel shouted. They ran into the cave, feet slipping on the wet ground. Behind them, the drone fired a pulse that exploded into the rocks, sending dust and stone flying. The cave shook but held. Deeper inside, the light faded, and the only sounds were their breathing and dripping water. After a few minutes, they stopped to catch their breath. I'm sorry, Elara said, leaning against the wall. I brought danger to you. Daniel looked at her, breathing hard. You also brought truth. You could have stayed away, but you didn't. That means something. In the silence of the cave, Elara finally spoke again. There's more. I didn't come just to warn you. I came because I need your help. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Help? With what? She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device, round, silver, and glowing from within. It looked like a sphere of light trapped in metal. This is the key, she said, to the vault buried on Earth. It can only be opened with human DNA. And your voice. Daniel stared at the sphere, shocked. Why me? You were chosen long ago. You just never knew it. A heavy silence followed. Outside, the storm grew louder. The drone had not returned yet, but Daniel knew it was only a matter of time. He took the sphere slowly, its warmth pulsing in his hand. He looked at Alara, then at the dark path ahead inside the cave. So where's this vault? He asked. Alara smiled faintly. Beneath the earth, beneath the past. In the place where our worlds first met. And with that, they stepped deeper. Into the shadows chased by enemies, holding a key to something powerful, ancient, and unknown. Deep inside the cold, narrow cave, the darkness felt heavier than the air. Daniel and Alara moved carefully, their footsteps echoing through the stone tunnels. The light from Daniel's flashlight shook with every breath he took, but his hands didn't tremble from fear, they trembled from the weight of something far greater than fear, truth. The small sphere Alara had given him was still glowing softly in his pocket, almost like a heartbeat. He could feel it warm, alive, and waiting. Alara walked beside him, silent for a long time. She looked tired, but her steps were steady. Daniel kept looking at her from the corner of his eye. So much had changed. Once, she was just a strange alien he met on a doomed mission. Now, she was the only link between him and a secret buried under Earth's surface, a secret that could destroy or save both their worlds. Finally, they stopped near an old metal door. Rusted and forgotten, it looked like something left behind by miners decades ago. Daniel reached for the handle, but Alara placed her hand on the wall instead. A low vibration passed through the stone, and the metal door opened with a groan. Sliding sideways, I unlocked it with my energy, she explained softly. This is one of the entrances to the vault's outer path. We're close. They entered a larger chamber, where strange markings lined the wall symbols that looked half human, half alien. The air was warmer here. The ground pulsed faintly, like something deep below was still alive. Daniel ran his fingers along the wall, tracing the carvings. These symbols? They look familiar. Alara nodded. They should. Your ancient ancestors saw them too. A long time ago, before your people knew science or machines, my kind visited Earth, not to rule, but to plant knowledge. We gave your world tiny seeds of wisdom and something more. Daniel frowned. What did you leave behind? She paused before answering, her voice almost a whisper. A weapon. The word echoed in the chamber like thunder. Why? Daniel asked. Why would you leave something like that here? Because we feared what was coming, Alara said. There was a group among my kind, the forgotten. They believed in power, in control. They wanted to rule not just one world, but all. We had to hide the core of the weapon, the heartlight, somewhere safe. Earth was young, unnoticed. It became our secret place. Daniel shook his head. So now they want it back. And they'll kill anyone who gets in their way. Yes, Alara said. And they're close. Daniel paced the room, trying to absorb it all. Why me? Why is my voice the key to this? Weapon? I'm just a man who barely made it back from space. Alara looked at him with a steady gaze. Because you were chosen by the Heartlight itself. It sensed your mind, your soul. You touched part of it on that mission 12 years ago when your ship crashed. You didn't know it, but it marked you. Daniel remembered the strange dream he'd had while lying injured after the crash. Bright light, warm voices, visions of places he'd never seen. He had thought it was just his brain playing tricks. But now he knew better. What happens if they get the Heartlight? He asked. Alara's voice grew serious. They will rewrite reality. That power can bend matter, even time. They will become gods. And Earth. Earth will be the first to fall. A deep silence followed. The sound of dripping water from above was the only noise for a moment. Then a sharp crack split the air. Dust fell from the ceiling. "They found the path," Alara said quickly. "We have to move." They ran down a tunnel lit faintly by glowing crystals along the wall. The deeper they went, the warmer it became, and the stronger the glow. From Daniel's pocket. Finally, they reached a large stone chamber. At its center stood a pedestal, and on it, a small circular panel covered in alien script. "This is it," she said. "Place the sphere there. Speak your name. If the Heartlight still remembers you, the door will open." Daniel hesitated. "And if it doesn't?" Alara looked at him, calm but honest. "Then it will kill us both." With a deep breath, Daniel stepped forward. He took the sphere out of his pocket and placed it on the panel. The moment it touched, the room trembled. The script lit up with blue fire. A voice, soft and mechanical, filled the chamber. "Identity required." Daniel cleared his throat and spoke clearly. "Daniel Reese." Silence. Then the pedestal sank slowly into the ground. The wall ahead split open, revealing a glowing path beyond. "It remembered you," Alara whispered. But just as they stepped forward, a shadow moved at the entrance of the tunnel behind them. A voice, cold and sharp, echoed from the darkness. "Don't go any further. That power belongs to us now." Daniel turned. 3 tall figures stood in the shadows, cloaked, inhuman, and glowing faintly with red light. The Forgotten had arrived. Daniel stood frozen, his body tense, eyes fixed on the shadows at the tunnel's mouth. The red glowing figures stepped forward slowly, and their presence filled the ancient chamber with a pressure so heavy it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. Each of them was tall, faceless beneath dark armor, and their movements were smooth, almost ghost-like. One of them raised a hand, and Daniel felt his chest tighten, as if an invisible grip wrapped around his lungs. "Step away from the gate." The lead figure ordered, his voice sharp and hollow like wind through metal. "You don't belong here, human." Alara stepped in front of Daniel, shielding him. Her voice was firm, but quiet. "He has more right to be here than you." The figure tilted his head. "You lost your rights the moment you betrayed your kind. You brought shame to your bloodline. Now you run, hiding behind a human?" Daniel tried to speak, but Alara gently placed a hand on his arm. "Don't talk," she whispered. "They feed on fear and distraction." The Forgotten moved closer, and the chamber lights flickered with their presence. They weren't just warriors, they were something more, something unnatural. Daniel could feel it now. They weren't fully alive. Their bodies held energy, not blood. "They were once like me," Alara said softly, "but they gave up their souls for power. They became weapons of the old war. That's why they want the Heartlight. Not to protect, it's to control, to destroy." The leader spoke again. "We will take it. You can live, traitor, if you hand him over." Daniel stepped forward, slowly, despite the warning in Alara's eyes. He had never been a fighter, but he was tired of running. "You want the Heartlight?" he said. "You'll have to earn it." Without waiting for a response, he placed his hand on the glowing panel beside the now open gate. The chamber trembled as blue energy surged around the walls. The door ahead glowed brighter and began to close slowly, like a massive iris folding shut. The Forgotten charged. Alara raised both her hands and sent out a wave of light that burst through the chamber like a shock wave. It hit the attackers like a wall of flame, forcing them backward, but not stopping them. "Run!" she shouted. Daniel grabbed the glowing sphere and ran through the narrowing doorway. Alara followed, just as the gate sealed behind them. The sound of fists pounding from the other side echoed through the stone for several seconds, then faded. Inside the new chamber, everything was silent and golden. The walls shimmered with ancient carvings, and in the center of the room stood a tall pillar of crystal clear, humming, alive. The HEARTLIGHT. Daniel could barely breathe. The power in the air was overwhelming. It wasn't just energy, it was emotion, memory, time itself. The heartlight pulsed like a living heart, responding to his presence. "This is it," Alara said quietly. "The core of what we left behind. More than a weapon, it is a mind, a guardian. And it has waited for you." Daniel stepped forward, mesmerized. Visions flashed in his mind, images from the past, glimpses of alien skies, cities built in light, wars fought in silence, and moments of peace. It was showing him the history of both worlds. Then, suddenly, a voice inside his head. "Daniel Reese, do you choose to awaken me?" He looked at Alara. She nodded slowly. "You must choose. If you awaken the heartlight, it will bond with you, it will fight with you, but it will also burn you from the inside if your heart is not strong." Daniel thought about his past, the mistakes, the regrets, the loss. But he also thought about the good, saving his team, surviving the crash, helping strangers, and never forgetting Alara. "I choose," he said. He placed both hands on the crystal. Light exploded from the core, surrounding him in a cyclone of color and sound. Alara shielded her face as the entire chamber shook. Daniel floated above the ground, eyes wide open, his body glowing with the same light as the heartlight itself. Memories were no longer just shown, they were shared, connected. The heartlight accepted him. When he landed back on the ground, the glow faded, but a mark now shone on his right hand, a symbol, old and sacred. Alara stepped forward. "You've done it. The heartlight has chosen you." Daniel felt different, stronger, clearer, like his mind had expanded, but there was no time to celebrate. The wall behind them cracked open. The Forgotten had found another way in. This time, they weren't alone. Behind them floated a massive figure twice their size, covered in dark armor fused with red veins of light. Its eyes glowed like fire. "That's not just a hunter," Alara whispered. "That's a herald." Daniel clenched his fist. The heartlight burned gently in his hand. "No more running," he said. "Let's finish this." Daniel stood firm, his feet planted on the glowing floor of the chamber, his right hand still warm with the energy of the heartlight. The mark on his skin pulsed like a heartbeat, matching the rhythm of the ancient crystal behind him. But in front of him stood the herald, a creature taller than any man, cloaked in armor dark as the void, its glowing red veins pulsing like rivers of fire. The herald was no ordinary hunter. It was a commander, a legend of fear whispered across galaxies, now walking into Earth's soil. Alara moved closer to Daniel, her voice low and urgent. "We can't fight him. Not here. Not now. He's too strong." Daniel glanced sideways. "Then what do we do?" "We can't let him take the heartlight." Before she could answer, the herald raised one hand and the entire chamber shook. The stone beneath their feet cracked, and columns of energy shot through the walls. From the broken entrance behind him, more forgotten soldiers poured in, surrounding them with cold precision. The exit had vanished. They were trapped. And then, through the chaos, came a sound Daniel never expected to hear, a voice. Human, loud and familiar. "Stand down." A figure walked in through the dust, holding a strange device that seemed to interfere with the Forgotten's energy, forcing them to pause. Daniel stared in disbelief. It was Agent Brooks, a man from Daniel's past, once his commanding officer during the space mission 12 years ago. The same man who declared Daniel mentally unstable after his return from the alien planet. Brooks was older now, face weathered, but his eyes were sharp and cold as ever. Daniel's heart sank. "What are you doing here?" he asked, stepping forward. Brooks didn't smile. "Finishing what we started." Alara's expression darkened. "He knows about the heartlight." Daniel looked back and forth between them. "You've been working with them?" Brooks nodded slowly. Not exactly. I've been watching, waiting. When you came back from that failed mission, talking about alien life and energy crystals, everyone thought you were crazy. But I believed you. I just knew the truth needed patience. He looked at the Herald with something close to respect. They contacted me 2 years ago. Said they needed a human to open the vault. Said they'd spare Earth if we helped. You believe them? Daniel's voice was filled with disbelief. They want to drain this planet. Brooks shrugged. That's politics, Daniel. You save what you can. Give them what they want. Maybe they leave us with enough to rebuild. Maybe they don't, but either way, I'll be on their side when the dust settles. The betrayal hit harder than any weapon. Daniel had trusted Brooks, once looked up to him. Now he was just another pawn selling out the future for a moment of control. Brooks walked closer, holding out a small, glowing device. Give me the heart light. You're not a soldier anymore, Daniel. You're just a man. This is bigger than you. Daniel looked at Alara. Her eyes said everything. Don't trust him. The Herald took a step forward, his voice like grinding. Stone. Time is ending. Choose. Daniel's fingers closed around the crystal sphere. The heart light still pulsed with gentle warmth. In that moment, he felt the memories again, the people who had fought, sacrificed, hoped. He remembered the feeling of Ilara's hand pulling him from the wreckage years ago, her voice calling him back through the stars. He remembered what it meant to stand for something, even when the world didn't believe him. No, he said. Quietly, but with power. You can't have it. Brooks's expression twisted. Don't be a fool. But it was too late. Daniel raised the heart light and slammed it back into the pedestal. A surge of energy burst outward like a wave of lightning. The Forgotten screamed, shields breaking. The Herald raised his arms to block the light, but it cracked. Across his armor, exposing flickers of the dying soul trapped inside. Brooks flew backward, hitting the wall with a heavy thud. Daniel fell to his knees, gasping. The light faded. When the dust settled, the chamber was empty, silent except for a slow, echoing hum. Alara helped him up, her touch gentle. You stopped them, for now. Daniel looked down at his hand. The mark was brighter now, and his skin felt like fire. He had used a part of the heart light, and it had answered. What happens next? He asked, breathing hard. She looked at him with both pride and sadness. Now, we run again. The Herald isn't finished. And they know who you are now. As they left the chamber through a newly opened tunnel, Daniel looked back once more. The heart light still glowed, but dimmer, resting. It had chosen its guardian, and now the real war was just beginning. The tunnel opened into a hidden valley surrounded by towering cliffs and thick mist, untouched by time or technology. As Daniel and Alara stepped out from the ancient passageway, the air felt heavier, like the world itself was holding its breath. The heart light's glow on Daniel's hand had faded, but the warmth still burned deep beneath his skin, steady. Quiet, waiting. It wasn't over. Not yet. They moved quickly, knowing they had little time. The battle in the chamber had only slowed the Forgotten. The Herald had been wounded but not defeated. Daniel could still feel its presence somewhere. Out there, distant but moving, hunting. And Brooks. He might have been broken by the energy blast, but men like him had a habit of crawling back when you least expected it. They reached a small clearing where Daniel had once built a makeshift satellite station during his early post-mission. Years, it was old, dusty, but still intact. Metal dishes stuck out from the earth like crooked fingers, reaching for the stars. Alara checked the surrounding area with a scanning device. No immediate signs of life, she said. But they will find us again. The Herald has marked you. There's no hiding now. Daniel nodded slowly. Then we stop hiding. We use this. He pulled out a metal key from an old toolkit and flipped a cover near the control panel. Inside was a console manual, outdated but still functional. He began typing in a long code, fingers moving with both familiarity and urgency. Alara watched him, eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" "Activating Earth's old orbital defense signal," he replied. "It was never finished, never tested, but if we connect it with the Heartlight signal, it might be strong enough to push them back. At least give Earth a fighting chance." Ilara's eyes widened. "But that signal, it could kill you. It was built for machines, not human minds. You connect it to the Heartlight now, and it'll burn you alive." Daniel didn't look up. "We don't have another option. Earth has no army for this, no warning systems, no space fleet. All we have is this light and a little time." She moved to him, voice soft. "Let me do it instead." "No," he said firmly. "The Heartlight chose me. It's inside me. If anyone else tries, the system won't work. Or worse." Silence stretched between them like a tight wire. Finally, Ilara looked away, her voice cracking. "I didn't come back to watch you die." Daniel turned to her, finally meeting her gaze. "And I didn't survive all this. Didn't hold onto your memory for 12 years just to let Earth fall." She didn't argue again. Instead, they worked side by side, calibrating the system. Ilara rewired the power source while Daniel connected the Heartlight's energy through his mark. As the final sequence initiated, the ground beneath them began to tremble, and a beam of blue light shot into the sky from the satellite dish. It reached far into the clouds, pulsing like a heartbeat dot far above Earth, a long-dormant orbital station. Blinked to life. Lights flickered across its shell as ancient systems rebooted. And in deep space, the forgotten ship's dark, massive things shaped like knives and bones turned their attention toward Earth. They had found them in the valley. The skies darkened unnaturally. A red glow spread across the clouds as if something was bleeding through the sky itself. The Herald had arrived this time not alone, but with a swarm of ships floating behind him like a plague. Daniel stood tall, breathing hard. The console vibrated under his hands. The Heartlight was inside the system now, syncing with Earth's defenses. He could feel the power running through him, almost unbearable. "I can't hold it for long," he said through clenched teeth. Ilara stepped beside him, gripping his hand. "Then we make it count." The Herald descended slowly, his body glowing with deep red fire. His voice echoed through the valley, not from his mouth, but from everywhere. "You delay the inevitable. Give me the light and your world will suffer less." Daniel shouted back, "I've seen what your mercy looks like. No more lies." The Herald raised his hand to strike, but the satellite beam pulsed again, brighter this time, slicing through the red clouds. The first wave of forgotten ships cracked, torn apart by the energy. One by one, their systems failed, but the strain hit Daniel like fire. His legs buckled and blood trickled from his nose. The system was taking its toll. Ilara held him steady, tears in her eyes. "Let me take some of the energy," she whispered. "I can share the burden. I'm linked to it too." He wanted to argue, but he couldn't speak anymore. Nodding faintly, he let her place her hand over his heart. A surge of light burst between them, blue and silver fusing their energy just enough. The final sequence activated above them. The Heartlight sent one last signal into the sky, and then silence. The light vanished. The Herald stood still, his red glow flickering, then fading. His body cracked like old stone and collapsed into the earth. The ships vanished like shadows in the sun. It was over. Daniel collapsed into Ilara's arms, barely conscious. She held him close, tears running down her face. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved them all." The sun rose slowly over the broken valley, its warm light creeping over jagged cliffs and scorched earth. Smoke still drifted in the air like fading ghosts, remnants of the battle that had almost torn the sky apart. The land was quiet now. The forgotten were gone. Their ships had vanished into dust. The herald's remains had crumbled into dark stone, cracked and lifeless. What remained was silence and a strange, peaceful stillness that Earth had not known in a long time. Still in the grass, eyes closed, his chest barely rising. Alara sat beside him, her hand pressed against his heart, feeling each faint beat like a whisper of life. His face was pale, skin marked with thin veins of blue light where the heartlight's energy had passed through him. He had survived, but only barely. The connection had taken so much from him, strength, memory, even time, but not everything. When his eyes slowly opened, Alara breathed out, relief washing over her like rain after fire. She helped him sit up gently. The first thing he saw was her face, and even though the light behind her made her glow like something from a dream, he knew she was real. She had always been real. "You're still here," he whispered. She smiled faintly. "I never left." They sat together in silence for a while, watching the light move across the sky. In the distance, the satellite station was a broken skeleton. The console had exploded after the last signal was sent. But it had worked. The energy pulse from the Heartlight had reached beyond Earth's atmosphere, driving back the invasion and disabling the Forgotten's tech across their entire fleet. Earth was safe for now. Daniel touched the mark on his hand. It still glowed faintly, but it no longer pulsed. The Heartlight inside him had gone quiet, like a guardian who had finished its duty and gone to sleep. "It's over, isn't it?" he asked. Alara didn't answer right away. She looked up at the sky, thoughtful. "For now," she said. "But peace is always borrowed, never owned. The ones we stopped, they were only part of a larger storm. Others will come, others who will want what Earth has. Or what you've become." Daniel nodded slowly. "Then I'll be ready." She turned to him then, her eyes softer, almost sad. "You don't have to fight anymore, Daniel. The Heartlight will remain asleep unless truly needed again. You've already given it more than anyone else ever could." He stared at her for a moment. "What about you? Will you go back?" Alara hesitated. The question held weight she had tried to avoid. Her world had been broken, her people scattered. By choosing to help a human by loving one, she had become an outcast among her kind. There was nothing left for her out there, not really. But there was something here. "I came back for you," she said softly. "And not just to warn you. I came because ... I never stopped thinking about you, not for one day." Daniel smiled faintly, even through his exhaustion. "I thought I dreamed you. After the crash, for years I kept hearing your voice. I thought I was losing my mind. You weren't," she said. "You were remembering." They stood together, weak but alive, surrounded by the ruins of a battle that few on Earth would ever know had happened. Somewhere far above them, the Heartlight's signal had marked a new chapter in Earth's history, one of connection, danger, and awakening. As the wind moved through the trees again, Daniel looked out toward the horizon. "So what now?" Alara stepped closer, her voice calm and clear. "Now we leave this place. There are still others I must find, survivors, rebels, those who believe peace is still possible. But I can't do it alone." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Are you asking me to leave Earth?" She nodded. "I'm asking you to come with me, not as a soldier, not as a weapon, as someone who can help others remember what they've forgotten: kindness, choice, truth." He looked back at the mountains, the sky, the Earth he had fought so hard to save. It had been his home, his prison, and his sanctuary. But now, it felt like a story coming to its last page. He took Alara's hand. "Wherever you go," he said. "I'll follow." The two of them walked toward the edge of the valley, where a small ship now hovered silently above the grass. Sleek and silver, it had no markings, no name, just the quiet hum of readiness. As they entered the ship, Daniel glanced back one last time at the land that had shaped him. A voice echoed in his mind, the last words of the Heartlight before silence. Some bonds cannot be broken, not by time, not by stars, not by war. And then the ship rose gently into the sky, its light vanishing into the morning clouds. The alien woman had returned, and this time he was leaving with her.